Let's go now to Florida Senator Marco Rubio. You just heard the mayor right there, Senator. What's your response to the idea that the #1 issue right now is investing more in America?
Well, it sounds like a lot of spending. I mean, obviously, we all agree that we want to grow the economy. And I think the most startling thing that's happened here over the last month of this campaign is the president has completely given up on outlining any sort of agenda for the future. I mean, what's his plan for the next 4 years? What do the next 4 years look like?
Didn't you just hear that from Mayor Emanuel?
Well, he talked about spending a lot of money, but for how does that, and I get that. I mean, I understand that's what he's done the last 4 years. They're going to continue to spend money on roads and bridges. That we already did that one time. It was called the stimulus, $800 billion, and it didn't grow the economy. What about the tax code? What about regulations? What are we going to do about the onerous impact that Obamacare is having on businesses all across the country and on individuals that are on the verge of losing their coverage that they like, and the small businesses that are moving people to part-time status to avoid the impact that the health care law is going to have on them? I mean, it's just startling that the president, 2 weeks from Election Day, has completely given up on outlining a plan for governing this country over the next 4 years.
But, you know, Senator, I was preparing for this for the show yesterday, and as I was preparing, I received this email in my inbox. It was from your Republican governor, Rick Scott, down in Florida, and it says Florida continues to move in the right direction. It says jobs created, unemployment down 22 months in a row. Isn't your governor making President Obama's case in Florida?
No. Let me tell you, we have a state government here with a balanced budget, a low and stable tax code, a legislative branch that works with the governor's office and gets things done, and vice versa. And so we do have progress in Florida, despite the dysfunction of Washington. Imagine if Governor Scott here in Florida, imagine if governors across the country who are doing similar things had a partner in Washington, D.C., and a president that understood how the economy grows. And that's why it's so disheartening. One of the things that's holding back our economy from growing and prospering is the lack of certainty about the future. And the president, for his unwillingness or inability to offer a governing plan for the next 4 years, is only making that worse.
But the economy is growing in Florida, isn't it, Senator?
It's growing in Florida because of these measures that have been taken in Tallahassee and by our state government. Imagine if it had a willing partner. Imagine if we had a tax code that was predictable, stable, and affordable. Imagine if the federal government said, we're going to bring these runaway regulations under control. Imagine if Obamacare was repealed. You would have real dynamic growth on top of what's already happening in the state, not just in Florida, but other states, because of what those governors and those legislatures have put in place.
Since the second debate, President Obama is pushing hard on the issue of trust. He says that voters shouldn't believe Governor Romney because he's shifting positions, and he came up with a word for it, Romnesia. Take a look.
If you say you're for equal pay for equal work, but you keep refusing to say whether or not you'd sign a bill that protects equal pay for equal work, you might have Romnesia. If you say women should have access to contraceptive care, but you support legislation that would let your employer deny you contraceptive care, you might have a case of Romnesia.
Your response?
That fires up his base, folks that are going to vote for him anyway. But for the rest of Americans who are trying to make up their mind who to vote for, what they're wondering is, well, that's very cute, Mr. President, but what are you going to do for the future? What is your plan to get this economy growing again? You know, my kid is graduating college, they may ask him, and he can't find a job. What are you going to do as president? What is your plan? Where's the president's plan to save Medicare? Where's the president's plan on taxes? Where's the president's plan on energy? Why isn't he talking about those things?
Well, let me just follow up once, though. Does Governor Romney support the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act or not?
I think that anyone who is working out there and making a living, if you're the most qualified person for the job, you should be able to get paid. You should get paid as much as your male counterpart. Everyone agrees with that principle. But just because they call a piece of legislation an equal pay bill doesn't make it so. In fact, much of this legislation is in many respects nothing but an effort to help trial lawyers collect their fees and file lawsuits, which may not contribute at all whatsoever to increasing pay equity in the workplace.
One final question, and it appears that you can still hear me, and that is on the issue of Iran. You saw that report in the New York Times. Does Governor Romney believe that the United States should be willing to sit down directly with Iran right now?
I think Governor Romney has said repeatedly that armed conflict should be the absolute last measure that one takes. I'm not going to comment on that story. The White House has denied it, and so there's really nothing to talk about. But I will say this. I think so much of our relationship with Iran was, under this president, was defined early in his administration when folks took to the streets there in that Green Revolution and the president took his hands off and said he wasn't going to get engaged or involved. That unfortunately set a tone where now Iran thinks they can go much faster and much harder than they used to think they could go. And today they're closer than they've ever been to a nuclear capability. That's very unfortunate.
Senator Rubio, thanks a lot for your time this morning. I apologize again for those technical difficulties.
All right, thank you.